You know what's driving me nuts?
That I'm the better-looking one?
No. Waiting to check out at the grocery store. When I'm hungry, my instincts kick in and I just want to smash through the line.
Well, you should make things safer for all of us and try almonds. They have 4 grams of hunger-slaying fiber, which can be game-changing, even for a man of your stature.
Not a bad idea. But what if I'm in line waiting to buy almonds?
Stick to the self-checkout and remember to breathe.
California almonds. Own your everyday. Every day.
Time for an oil change? Head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. We've also got you covered when it comes to oil changes, thanks to Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube. Leave worry behind.
Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the show, Pennzoil Performance Line. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out for Trey. Sitting next to Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr.
We're trying to, slowly make it back after the weekend out in South Bend.
You guys are recuperating. You guys partied a lot. I cried a lot. You guys partied a lot.
I was impressed. My wife bought this big, we had like 12 people in the place we have out there, staying out there for the weekend, and we had this nice big vat pitcher type thing. And Jake we got there Thursday evening, and he made a pitcher of Moscow Mules. 18 ginger beer cans and 2 liters of vodka made up this vat that we just...
Which you demanded was full of Moscow Mule because we had it there and my mom had some drink mix with some other stuff and she goes, no. I can use this vat. And you goes, no, that's for the mules.
That's the mule mix vat is what it is. And so we were dipping into the vat an awful lot.
Well, I mean, you were dipping into the vat an awful lot. You've been on this weird kick where I don't know what it's
It's refreshing.
I understand
it's
that.
It's very refreshing.
You have to understand, for me, though, as someone who growing up, even through college, never saw you drink all that much. You were kind of a 2-beer-at-dinner guy, and now that it's mules, it's like a Thursday, mom and dad are drunk out in West Hartford Center. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if that's all true, but occasionally.
I will say we've worked together a lot in 2018. For the first time, really gotten to hang out a lot.
Right.
And when I think Moscow Mule, I immediately think Mike Golic Sr.
It's refreshing.
Strong brand for you.
How about that?
Mule guy.
Mule guy. I'm a mule guy.
Mules with Mike.
I'm sweating out a lot of whatever it was.
Yeah, God knows what you had. You had a lot. I don't even know when you came in.
Yeah, no. I didn't know if you could shotgun a tequila soda, but it is possible.
Nothing like getting up because you're the parent and we have the dogs there, getting up to let them out and stuff, and there's people just laying everywhere. Laying everywhere.
I'm trying to help you here. Like Mules with Mike, like one of those gift basket services, and it's like a Moscow Mule gift basket with your face on the side of it, just kind of smiling.
Oh, that's what we do need is a copper mug with your grill on the side.
Do like the copper mug thing. I do have to say, Jenny, Jake's wife, Jenny, we for the dogs, we got a big, like, and you have the dogs, big, like,
kiddie pool?
Almost like a Tempur-Pedic bed.
Dog bed for the dogs. I walked out Sunday morning, got up. She was sleeping on it.
No, that's crazy.
She brought it in from the outside and she was sleeping on it. I mean, good for her. She said it was very comfortable, but wow.
You've heard of being in the doghouse. Yeah. My brother's wife literally slept on a dog bed.
Yes, she did.
I'm speechless to this, but also really, I appreciate the invite, guys. I'm just really busy, so I'll catch it next year.
We know you had your big college football show debut on Twitter this weekend.
Gratuitous self-promotion.
Thank you. The college football show comes to you on Twitter on the ESPN social handles every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. Check it out, Eastern. Now we'll get you caught up on what's trending. That was well done.
Really good. I like that.
Serena Williams reached the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open for a 10th consecutive appearance. She wasn't there last year because she gave birth to her daughter during the tournament, but she gets up another big win for Serena.
Yeah, Kaya Kanepi, she beat 18 minutes in the first set she won.
Good Lord.
That was the quickest of any men's or women. She lost the second set, then wins the third. So a couple of Americans left, her and Sloane Stephens. It was interesting. Sloane Stephens win, and she was talking after about she was happy she lost. I think it was in Cincinnati that she was happy she lost because she had a little extra time off. She got to go to one of her best friend's wedding and kind of got to chill for a little bit before she came to the U.S. Open and felt a little more fresh. She said, my body always wants to win, but she said sometimes my mind is like, maybe it's not too bad that I'm not going all the way to the finals of this certain tournament, to get more rested up for something like the U.S. Open. So, and then on the other side, I think we have one American, right? John Isner's the only American left, I do believe, going another 5-setter. When these guys play 3-4 hours, it's ridiculous.
It's also pretty stunning to think that Serena's still working her way back after everything she went through in the birthing process. So really incredible that
everything she went through in the birthing process. You mean like giving birth?
Well, no, it was very complicated, and she almost died in childbirth.
Okay.
So, it was more than just a regular, more than regular just giving birth.
I just thought you were kind of explaining it like you did, Mike, and you failed miserably.
Struggling to understand the things.
Neither one of you has kids. She gave birth.
Right.
That's what she did. She gave. You guys try and word it differently.
Yeah, right. I understand Jason's point, though, because there were some
complications.
There were complications around that made it more difficult. But in general, watching a all-time great athlete work back from something that as men who played sports, we have no ability to reconcile. Like, I thought it was really interesting. Was it Candace Parker that was on the shop with LeBron James and them?
Yes,
with her talking about the challenges of motherhood in her sport and trying to balance being the mother she always had in her mind with the mother she is now trying to be a professional athlete, and just the silence in the rest of the room, that sort of respectful silence that we don't know anything about this, so we're going to shut up and listen.
The worst thing about that is where the camera went to next on that, when it's like, to a guy. The hell am I supposed to say? I mean, what am I going to say to that? I got no answers for you.
That was the nice part to me. Is they were all just like, you know what? We're not going.
We can't.
We're going to listen to you on this one as someone who's doing this at an unbelievable level.
Well, Serena Venus was amazing to watch, but Serena's continual climb is amazing to watch as well. Last night, a little college football action on a Sunday. Number 25 LSU picked up its fourth straight win against an AP top 10 program not named Alabama by defeating number 8 Miami 33-17.
Yeah, this was a game where 3-3 for a while, and then LSU kind of opened it up on them to a 27-3 halftime lead. As I said earlier, very cool to see Nick Brissett, the running back for LSU, got 2 touchdowns. He's a senior. 2 rushing touchdowns, one a nice 50-yarder, nice that you old linemen all went nuts on Twitter last night, breaking it down. But this was a guy that had 141 touchdowns in high school, goes to LSU, and basically has to wait and gets going his senior year. Those were the first 2 touchdowns of his LSU career after scoring that many in high school. It shows you how many great players can go to a school, especially when you're coming out of high school. But a big win for them. Wasn't great quarterbacking by either team. Malik Rose, 15 of 35. Joe Burrow, the transfer from Ohio State, 11 of 24. So wasn't great quarterbacking, but LSU got it done on the ground, get a pick 6 on defense, and they're so athletic and so good on defense.
How do we get getting at all levels quarterback's name wrong? We just had the Tyrod debate all through NFL training camp, and now last night we find out on the broadcast that Malik Rozier from last year actually says his name is pronounced Rozier. So now all this time, I don't know how this slips through the crack. And I get it if you're a kid, you just get called something for so long, you let it go. But we seem to be in the year of the quarterback misnaming.
Yeah, well, one thing stood out from last night, one stat, but I'm going to let ESPN college football analyst Todd Blackledge give it to you because it is spectacular.
LSU finished with 156 yards rushing, Miami 83. In their history, if they gain over 100 yards rushing and hold their opponents to under 100 yards, they are now 74-0 in those football games. That's a pretty good number to go by.
Spectacular nugget.
74-0 is good, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good.
It's a reminder that, too, you're usually rushing a lot in situations and in games where you're already winning. And I think for LSU, it was about a lot of the big play strikes that they had. Certainly, a couple of them were big, long runs that you got at the beginning of the game. But I don't think it was as much a sustained rushing attack. This is still a very good Miami run defense, but it was a good LSU game plan and good, timely offense from them.
Yeah, I think Miami had more total yards in this game than LSU did, yeah.
Yeah, timely offense is a great way to put it, Mike. It's going to be interesting to see how that grows throughout the course of the year. Urban Meyer returns to the Ohio State football program today following more than a month away from the team while he was on paid administrative leave and then served a suspension.
Yeah, Ohio State put it on. Oregon State beat him 77-31. He still has to sit for 2 more games, but as Jason just mentioned, he could go back to the team now. He had to be away from the team until today or to go back now. But now he can be with the team for everything except the game for the next 2 weeks. So doesn't really feel like much of a suspension anymore when he can be. And who really knows, quite honestly, how much he was part of it, even when he wasn't there, of what he still may have been able to do or not do.
Yeah, regardless, this is the more interesting part to me for the team as they get closer to that TCU matchup that we feel like is going to be the first real test for them. Is before you had Coach Day as just the coach, the one voice in that through the entire time on the day-to-day, and now you're going to have the voice during the week they're going to have to try and balance versus the guy that they're actually responding to on Saturday over the flow of a game. So some interesting communication points as far as the team, and on the field, it was a lot of what we expected from them.
That gets you caught up on what's trending. It's Golic and Wingo. Golic and Wingo on the road, presented by Progressive Insurance. We'll be live this Friday from Green Bay for the Bears-Packers matchup. You guys can see Khalil Mack up close and personal. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620. It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. We're going to go straight to the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line now, where, speaking of coaches, we get to join one that had a heck of a weekend.
Wow,
Auburn head coach Gus Malzahn. Coach, thanks for giving us some time this morning. We appreciate you.
Hey, good morning, guys.
So you've watched this team throughout the course of the spring and the summer. When you actually saw the action on the field, what stood out to you as something that surprised you?
Yeah, really wasn't a whole lot that surprised us. I mean, Washington is a quality team, a top 10 team, and I think that's well-deserved. And it was exactly what we thought. They were really good on defense. They were good on offense, good on special teams, and it's a big win for us. And we found out a lot about our team. Anytime you play a quality opponent first, you know what you got right off the bat. And whereas some teams, don't play a quality opponent until late in the season. So it was a good win for us.
So for coaches, Coach, that control everything and feel they know everything about their team, because there is no preseason before you go into the regular season and you have a tough game like this, is there a little bit of trepidation and nervousness of, I'm not really sure what I'm about to see in this game?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Especially when you play a quality opponent. I mean, your deficiencies are exposed, and I think your strengths are exposed too. And when you're playing a first game without having a preseason, everything that goes with that, especially with the new guys, you usually have a good idea with your veterans. But in college football, there's a lot of freshmen for the most part, that play the first game, and you find out a lot of information on them.
Talking to Gus Malzahn, Auburn head coach on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you talk about the new guys and the veteran guys. Well, some guy you knew about under center was Jared Stidham, who had a hell of a game. But I'm always interested, for quarterbacks especially, and for a guy that you had under center with you last year, what was the focus this offseason for him? What did he want to improve on? What did you want to see him improve on? And did that show itself in the first game?
Yeah, it sure did. He was really his ball security in the pocket. He really focused hard on that, and just being more comfortable and having more control of the offense, and he did all the above. I mean, we thought he played a very good game. He made 11 plays outside of our system that were positive plays when things break down, and he did a great job leading us.
We're talking to Coach Gus Malzahn, Auburn head coach on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. On the other side of it, you guys were able to get a ton of pressure on Jake Browning. What was the key there? How were you able to accomplish that?
Well, our defensive line is extremely talented. Coach Steele, our defensive coordinator, did a great job with some schemes, and he picked and chose when we were about pressure and not. And of course, he's an outstanding quarterback, and he was good as advertised. So it was good to keep him off balance and tried to put some pressure, especially in his face.
One of the things that you had talked about from last year and you wanted to see different this year, because when you beat teams like Georgia and Alabama last year, they ended up being double-digit wins, and you talked about overcoming adversity and not being able to win the close game. So that had to be a real feather in the cap for this one, with the way your team had to come up at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of times it's how you win that can really help you in the rest of the season. And you're exactly right. We didn't have any close wins last year, and we talked about overcoming adversity, finding a way to win. And in the fourth quarter, our offense made plays to help us win, our defense and our special teams. So, just for a first game, it really couldn't have went any better as far as being able to help us with a close win against a quality opponent that, some things we can learn, from the next time that we have that type of game.
Coach, I'm interested for you just from the sideline mechanics here. Chip Lindsey's calling the plays, and so you get to get a little bit of a different look at the defense, stand a little farther down the field. How does that help you in analyzing what the other side's defense is doing and how you judge play calling from there?
Yeah, of course, I've been on the sideline my whole career, 15 years high school and then of course, 12 or 13 in college. And so I'm used to seeing it down the field. Anytime you can get a different perspective, from behind the defense, just trying to give, Chip factual information on defenses and adjusting and what they're doing.
So, Coach, you guys get a big win, but as Mike just alluded to earlier, you guys got a lot of big wins last year. With the roster changeover and the way college football works, how much of last year's experience of being part of the national championship conversation for so much of the year can actually play into what your message to the guys this year?
Yeah, we were really close. Last year we were really one quarter away from winning the SEC championship, and we had a lot of guys back, and so just using that experience and trying to find a way to be a quarter better and everything that goes with it. And, of course, our schedule is really similar, what it was last year. We feel like we're playing the toughest schedule in college football. We still got 3 ranked teams, highly ranked teams, away from our home, so we got to roll our sleeves up. We're glad to get a game 1 victory against a quality opponent, but that's just one game, so we gotta finish it.
Gus Malzahn, head coach of Auburn, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You mentioned a tough schedule last year, but this year, Coach, I mean, do you scratch your head and say, okay, what are we doing? I mean, you open up with Washington, and I know, listen, you have Alabama State this week, and I get that's where going to be the focus, but then you play LSU. I mean, in 2 of the 3 weeks, holy smokes. I mean, is there wait a minute, who's making this schedule?
Yeah, I tell you, it's really a challenging schedule. There's no doubt, but that's the hand we've been dealt, and we just talked to our team, and hey, we got to figure out a way to get it done. And obviously, you just said LSU; they looked very good last night, and of course, Mississippi State is no cakewalk when you have to go there either. And then, like you said, at the very end, and then you throw in the rest of the SEC West, so it's a man's schedule, and we got a veteran team. We just got to find a way to get it done.
All right, Coach, let's have an honest moment here. Auburn had lost 2 straight in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so now there was this change to the road whites, even though they're the home team, different locker room this time. Was there a little superstition in that process?
I don't know if there's superstition, but I'm glad we won, because I heard that all offseason. I know our players did too. We really didn't talk about it, but every time we turned around, somebody asked about it. So it was good to get a victory there.
Are you a superstitious guy? Do you do the same things like during the week or on game days or have things you do?
I'm a routine guy. I don't think I'm superstitious, but I'm a routine guy. And sometimes I'll get out of my routine if we have a loss or something like that. But, just try to stay in the lane.
Coach, congratulations on a big win week 1. Congratulations, and have a fantastic season. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
That's Auburn head coach Gus Malzahn with the College Football Talk, brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Get to your local store today. Grab some delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville, now playing everywhere college football games are played. I do love me some Diet Dr. Pepper, and I love the way Auburn won.
And I think, and I go back to the year you and Jake and your team went undefeated, in the different ways you won, and just what he talked about in no close games last year that they won, and they won a close game this year. That year when you guys went undefeated, you won them in all kinds of different ways, and that's got to help when you can win. You get the blowouts occasionally, but when if you're down and you come back, what you guys had to do, or it's that tight game and a goal line stand, which we saw as well, the different ways to win can make a difference.
Yeah, so before each game, we had something called Mental Edge, which was like a video montage of all these great plays that you had made in the weeks prior, and we'd watch that right before we would get ready to go on the player walk and everything else. And we sort of laugh about, watching a highlight reel of ourselves, but it's sort of a reminder that you bankroll all those things mentally when it goes through it. When you have the Stanford goal line stand win that we have, you bankroll that. When you go on the road and win that first double-digit win against Michigan State in week 2 or 3 or whatever it was, you bankroll that, and you kind of assemble all those moments so that when you get in another moment, when you're standing out there on 3rd down and you've got something to go, you remember, well, all right, we've done this in an environment similar to this already. We've overcome that situation. We know how to play with a lead on the other side. We know what it takes when we've got a chance to get with a knockout blow of an opponent. You take it. You saw LSU take advantage of that last night with Miami, and when you've got those moments with veteran players, it always finds a way to manifest itself in specific situations.
I think we need to have our minds on Auburn and remember one thing. It's easy so much of the conversations about Georgia and Alabama because they're dominant and they look like they will be dominant football teams this year. But to Coach's point, to the conversation we just had, Auburn was a quarter away. They had an opportunity, and Auburn is one of the few teams in the country at this point right now they can play their way into a national championship. So as much as we can have the conversation of how good can Auburn be, they can be national championship good. And so much of that's going to depend on how Stidham develops, how Stidham looks throughout the course of the year. But Auburn's one of those teams that controls its destiny through and through.
Well, I mean, again, you look at, LSU next week, Mississippi State, like the rock getting close to the middle of the year, Georgia, Alabama. As he said, it's a man's schedule, and there's no doubt about that.
I think it's an interesting point that Jason made, though, about keeping your eye on them, because Gus Malzahn brought it up there. 11 plays in the game that when they broke down, Jared Stidham makes. College football, a lot like the NFL, what do we always talk about? You got to win your division first. You got to win the SEC West first. You got to win the SEC first. That road goes through Alabama. What has given Alabama trouble during this Nick Saban tenure is mobile quarterbacks that can make plays when everything breaks down, when chaos is going around, and make plays downfield. Jarrett Stidham has got a large, rangy group of wide receivers, and he's a guy that made plays already in week one when it breaks down. That's something to keep an eye on, because that's the Alabama beater.
Think about the early in the season, the winner, because they both have, let's admit it, they have lesser teams this week, both Auburn and LSU, after the games they started with. I think the winner of that game 3 is going to be 3-0 with those 2 wins. Whoever wins it will have 2 big wins already early in the season.
Yep, and this is a great week too. LSU coming off last night, they have the best possible scenario here because you won by however many, you were dominant, and you have so many things to fix. Awful clock management in the first quarter.
Yeah.
You burned 3 timeouts with 3 minutes left. You had substitution issues. You had penalties. You had things all along the way that if you're Ed Orgeron, you can walk in there from the perch of saying we won and we won big and saying, look how much better we can be, and go to work on that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying we're sleeping on Auburn as being a good team. I just think we're sleeping on Auburn as being possible national champions is enough of a conversation. Coming up, if you thought Nick Saban or John Gruden were salty, waiting to hear this next coach.
It's been a long offseason without football, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives. That means this: FanDuel is ready for more. More ways to play, more ways to challenge your friends, and most importantly, more ways to win. FanDuel also has new options for playing daily fantasy with your friends, because the only thing better than winning cash is winning your friends' cash. Right now, you can get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Will Kane. Age and state restrictions apply.
It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit Zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing. Technology powers your business, and technology changes. But chances are you're still using video conferencing that was wow 10 years ago, but feels more like whoa today. Ditch the choppy video and crappy audio and get back to wow with Zoom. It's the easiest, most reliable video collaboration suite, and it costs about 1/3 of what you're probably paying now. Wow, not whoa. Visit Zoom.us to set up a free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
For those that maybe don't know, Jason Fitz, who has now been here at ESPN for a little bit of time and blowing up here, as they say, was the fiddle player in the band, Perry. You were the band leader there, and you were at the Juilliard School of really cool music people when you were 10 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, for the violin. So, I mean, you are a musically inclined person. You are big-time music guy.
Much better with the little notes than I am the little words.
That's
what we've learned.
Seems so.
I love how you treated Juilliard like it was the Derek Zoolander school for kids who can't read good.
It needs to be bigger.
Well, they're going to trust me with more reading because we have...
Oh, no.
Breaking news.
You're going to do this?
I'm going to do this.
All right.
The Buffalo Bills on Monday named Nathan Peterman as the starting quarterback for their regular season opener Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens. According to ESPN's Mike Rodak, Peterman being named the starter was expected after he completed 33 of 41 passes this preseason for 431 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Peterman and rookie quarterback Josh Allen were among a large group of core players the Bills had held out of Thursday's preseason finale, suggesting that they were being considered for the starting job. So Peterman gets the start over, obviously, Josh Allen.
You know, I thought all the
Peterman.
Yeah. who hopefully will have a better start to this season than his first start last year when he threw 5 picks, I think all in the first half. We had talked about the rookie quarterbacks in the first round this year, all kind of doing well. You kind of saw what the good was in all of them. And with Josh Allen, you kind of got exactly what had been written about him. Strong arm. At times you go, wow, but then at times you go, wow. Where was that ball going? So the thought process is, okay, how good are the Bills from that team's thought? Do we just get our rookie out there and get the clock starting on him and get him the in-game experience? I think this is the right move. While I'm not saying he's not a deer in the headlights by any stretch of the imagination as Josh Allen, but he's wildly inconsistent right now, which isn't shocking for a rookie. I'm not saying that in a bad way. And again, you're not drafting a quarterback in the first round to be great his rookie year. Let's give him some time. I do think this is the right move to keep him as a backup right now and give Peterman a shot. Peterman earned it. Peterman outplayed him, no doubt about it. But we know with draft picks in the first round, sometimes that doesn't matter depending on where your team is. But the better quarterback is starting for them right now.
Well, I think the situation is also something you have to monitor here, because the one thing we saw is no matter who was under center for them, they were being harassed by the opposing defense, and you don't want to go out there and get your first-round pick and the guy you hope is your future killed early in his tenure while there's not much to write home about this offense. I mean, besides LaShawn McCoy, there's not really much you point to on this offense and say, yeah, this can be a difference maker for us. This can help our young quarterback out in these situations. So I think it's as much about him and them probably knowing in their heart of hearts whoever's under center is not going to be very well protected for right now.
So, hey, Nathan, go enjoy.
Well, I mean,
how about it?
But I'm also the hill I sort of choose to die on young quarterbacks is remembering that quarterbacks now are playing at such a high level to such an advanced age. So the conversation of if you think Josh Allen's the future and you're the Bills, the conversation isn't even about next year or 3 years from now. I mean, the conversation is get him ready. But if he's the guy, he's going to be your guy for the next 15 years. So really this year, I don't want to say this year's insignificant. Bills fans don't want to hear that. But the process is all about the development of the young quarterback. That's the only thing that matters.
The amazing thing is, though, is that is a line, Jason, that is said all the time. And we always hear, we're not going to play him. We're going to sit him down. And then they all end up playing. They don't end up playing the rookie year. Blake Bortles was supposed to have a redshirt year, right? We saw how that happened. Josh Allen is going to play this year. They're going to see the field. Anytime we hear we want to wait, we want to hold off, that plan ends up getting blown up and thrown out the window.
I mean, realistically, we'll probably see all of these guys this season, right?
Yeah,
we know Sam Darnold has he been announced the actual starting yet for the Jets?
Well, no, he is.
We probably assume Sam Darnold's going to get the start at some point. Josh Rosen out in Arizona, we're going to see him on the field. Baker Mayfield, we all know these guys are going to see the field. It's just going to be that race to win.
Right.
So the Bills' name is started for Sunday, but what about the Eagles for Thursday? Reports this weekend that Nick Foles will start the Eagles opener on Thursday. That was circulating because Carson Wentz hasn't been cleared for contact, which leads us to this salty moment. Coaches feeling kind of salty over the weekend, but this was a little unexpected. Doug Pederson's not usually the salty type, but he didn't appreciate the questions about the quarterback. Check this out.
Hey, Doug, did you make a decision on who will be starting quarterback, and if so, who?
First of all, I appreciate y'all putting words in my mouth this week, and therefore, I'm not going to discuss it.
How were words put in your mouth?
You saw the reports.
Who? Well,
next question.
Hey, but who here?
Next question.
Who here put the words in?
Next question.
I know, but what reporter here put the words in your mouth?
I'm not answering the question.
I know, but you said
as a group.
That makes no sense.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm going to lump y'all together.
Okay, well, that's good. We're asking fair questions. What's the point of this?
Exactly. What is the point of this? It's my decision.
And you're not going to discuss your decision?
No, not publicly. I don't do that. I don't do it with any position on this team. I will not do it.
Was Carson cleared for contact?
He is not. Not yet.
So can you say if he hasn't been cleared, is it your decision to even make?
My decision to make?
I mean, if he hasn't been cleared for contact, what did he?
We got a lot of days left.
So if he's cleared today or tomorrow, he has enough time to prepare with confidence if that's
We'll see.
Is your refusal to talk about it based on competitive advantage or just
a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to win a football game, and I don't want to put my game plan out there for everybody to see it and read it, and teams can scheme, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? So I appreciate it.
Who will take first team reps today?
I'm not going to discuss it.
Getting salty.
How about it? And he's listen, when we hear Belichick or Saban or Greg Popovich do this, we're all like, oh, we can't wait to play it and get a good laugh. Doug Pederson is not that kind of coach that does this. And the more he kept saying, I'm not going to talk about it, the more he ended up talking about it a little bit. He did go a little Drew Rosenhaus on us for a little bit with the next question. Doug just never fit that kind of mold to get really throw back at the media. But, again, these are fair questions to ask because you haven't named a starter. And with the quarterback situation going on, so it's how a coach chooses to answer it and how the questions will keep coming. I can't blame, sometimes you'll say, the media shouldn't have asked this or shouldn't have done that. They have every right to be asking this. And he has every right to give those answers as well. I mean, just know that's the situation you're in. But the questions are going to keep coming.
It is amazing, though, when you look at the differences of the situation. You're right. You can tell Doug Pederson is not this guy because the media wouldn't dare respond to Bill Belichick or to Nick Saban with that level of snark. Because that's the one thing. Maria came in and asked the question very kindly. These guys, there is a lot of side-eye. There's a lot of sarcasm in the voices in there.
Could you imagine if one of those guys said, well, that's not fair to Bill Belichick?
That doesn't make sense.
They understand there would be blowback there. So that's what I mean. Like in this situation, Doug Pederson, I can understand a little more because he's getting actual blowback in real time from this room. Like it was made combative in that situation. And he started that. He started that by saying, you guys put words in my mouth, but no one in the media would dare do that to those other coaches.
But isn't it at this point sort of the worst kept secret at this? I mean, Nick Foles, until Carson Wentz is cleared for contact, this isn't even a conversation.
This is, again, a coach wants to control the situation. A coach doesn't want to make it look like the media is winning or getting the edge. Coaches have an agenda. Coaches want to control the situation. Doug Pederson is trying to control the situation. He just, this kind of is out of character for him. He doesn't really do this an awful lot, so you can tell this has really gotten to him some, but he still wants to control it all, and I get it, and the media wants to get their answer. There is no way Carson Wentz is starting this game. No way. And the one thing that I don't agree with, unless you have a Joe Flacco and a Lamar Jackson, to say, for a competitive advantage, we're not letting our opponent know. This is Nick Foles and Carson Wentz, okay? They're not that different. Carson Wentz can move a little more, though he is coming off the ACL. So this isn't. So I don't buy that whole thing a whole lot when two quarterbacks are kind of similar to the, it's a competitive advantage that the other team doesn't know.
But they're also both known commodities. These are both quarterbacks that everyone has a ton of tape on. Right. And it always makes me laugh, this competitive advantage idea, because you have plenty of the best teams in the NFL that go into every year with a very clear starter at quarterback. Yeah. So it makes me wonder, all right, like, is there something we don't know about this situation right now that they're trying to guard against? Because you're the defending Super Bowl champions trying to gain a competitive advantage by clouding with either the quarterback that was going to be the MVP for you last year, who everyone knows, or the quarterback that was your Super Bowl MVP that everyone knows because he's been around the league for a long time. Like, is there suddenly a lack of confidence in Nick Foles or something that would draw this out?
But the theory of competitive advantage here would imply that you believe, or not you, but that the Doug Pederson and the Eagles staff believes that the Falcons are going to read these clips and actually care about what any of us think.
Again,
Dan Quinn is preparing for Nick Foles, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way he's
completely agree. I think, again, this is Doug Pederson. This is every head coach trying to control the narrative of what when they're talking to the media, and I understand that.
Golic and Wingo brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Upgrade to shaving with a fresh blade whenever you want for a fraction of the price. Join DollarShaveClub.com today. Coming up earlier on the show, the NFL actually admitted to making a significant adjustment. You'll hear it next. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
A lot of tequila sodas this weekend. Yep. Anyway, South Bend, Friday night, collision course.
How amazing was it?
Well, of what we remember.
Yeah, hi, this is Officer O'Malley of the Notre Dame Campus Police, and I'm investigating a report that we had several individuals running through the parking lot in thongs with chicken wing sauce all over them, and I wondered if you had any information on that.
It's Golic and Wingo.
That's why you burn the clothes.
Got to burn them all. Too much powdered donut on there, too. Sports Center is not on this list. But Golic and Wingo is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today.
There you go. Yeah, you burn all the evidence. That's why you just end up in a thong. Everything else was burned. Bodies were washed.
It was hot, too, man.
It was hot.
I say it was cooking out there. Didn't realize South Bend was so geographically located near swamp, but it felt soupy.
Yeah. We were the equator.
Did he say thong and wing sauce?
Wing sauce.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure you put the thong on first before you roll in the wing sauce. That's like the one.
Our bodies have had so much wing sauce in them and on them that it doesn't affect us the way it
You build up
normal.
a tolerance like
That's
poison.
exactly right.
Incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I thought
sexual and violent.
I thought you up was a weird conversation. Golic Sr. covered in wing sauce.
Sexual and violent
celebration.
What is that?
It's Golic.
Grab the reins,
Not
Jason.
God, I'm
Grab
trying. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm sure they love that reminder after that comment. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, hanging out with Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. And earlier in the show, we had Troy Vincent on, NFL Executive VP of Football Operations. And I want to give Troy a little props because the couple of things that have stood out to me that in general, when the NFL came and made their presentation to ESPN about rule changes, I thought it was a very open, honest conversation from the NFL. I was really pleasantly surprised this morning to see that continue. Troy Vincent came on with us and was open, honest about the controversy that's been around, but also about how the league has sort of gotten better when it comes to officiating the helmet rule specifically. This is what he said earlier.
We've gotten better. I would say where we began going into training camp, after 2 weeks of preseason, we saw a significant adjustment week 3 and week 4 from the not just the call, but the accuracy of the call, what the coaches were expecting, what the players were expecting, what a coach could coach, what a player could actually apply on the field.
I think those are great statements because that's exactly what goes on. When we talked about whether it was here or we heard about when the officials were at the Eagles and other teams that there was confusion there. And that's what players want to know. Players may not like certain rules, but they want to know what the rules are and how you're going to enforce them. So when you get a penalty and you're kind of shaking your head going, wait a minute, and the coach calls the league and says, well, wait a minute, and you can't get a good explanation back, that makes it difficult because that, in essence, is what is going to move on to the next week. What can a coach tell a player? What can the player learn and understand of what I can and what I can't do? And it was difficult the first couple of weeks of the preseason because, in all honesty, there were mixed signals.
There were mixed signals, and I always go back to the way this is going to be perceived the entire year, I think, is born out of the fact that when there was the rollout, there wasn't enough clarity about how coaches and players are going to have to go about teaching and playing this. And I applaud the NFL for acknowledging, all right, we didn't approach this the right way at the beginning. Let's adjust on the fly. But that still doesn't excuse the poor planning that seemed to go in on the front end of this.
Well, and I don't disagree with that, Mike, but I have to come back and look at it at some point and say what I've asked of the NFL for a long time is to have the same transparent attitude that the NBA has. I think that the NBA putting out the last 2-minute report that tells us what went right and what wrong and from officiating is it's a bold statement to come out and just throw it out there. I've asked for the NFL to do that for years. The fact that they're doing that and really coming out and saying, hey, we got better throughout the course of the season, through the preseason of calling it, does speak to some level of transparency and admitting, hey, we weren't perfect and we're trying to get there. And in fact, you even asked, I think, the number of incorrect calls that they saw, and Troy was willing to answer that.
After 3 weeks, there were 14 incorrect calls, and the incorrect calls were the ones where you can look at the video, you're looking at the call sheet from the official, and you can talk through it. So there were about 14 of the 60 after 3 weeks that were incorrect. And you saw the adjustment. You saw, okay, if you don't always see it, you're going to have bang, bang. You're going to have incidental contact with the face mask. You're going to have incidental contact with the helmet. Don't call that if you're not certain.
For those that want to do quick math, that's just under 25%. So it's just under 1 in every 4 calls according to them, were wrong. So, but it did clean up. 25 week 1, 26 week 2, 9 week 3. So we'll see where this goes. Because, again, that's the biggest thing when a player feels like he's doing the right hit and you still get flagged for it. That, Mike, is the damning part of the micro part of this as opposed to the macro and what they're trying to accomplish.
It's just learning to treat it like every other call, because there were plenty of times I didn't think I was holding and I still got called for it. Like, at the end of the day, it's not that much different. And the way we saw different officiating crews started calling this more, just like a lot of other penalties. It got called less after the 3rd preseason game, just like a lot of other penalties being implemented. It's starting to look like just every other penalty.
But you really were holding.
Absolutely. And there's a transition for everybody to get used to it, just like every other penalty. You're right, Mike, that it can be just like every other penalty, but we still have to get used to it before we can view it and absorb it that way. Coming up, the most interesting man at ESPN is going to call a football game from a blimp tonight. He'll join us next. Golic and Wingo.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
You know what's driving me nuts?
That I'm the better looking one?
No. Waiting to check out at the grocery store. When I'm hungry, my instincts kick in and I just want to smash through the line.
Well, you should make things safer for all of us and try almonds. They have 4 grams of hunger-slaying fiber, which can be game-changing, even for a man of your stature.
Not a bad idea. But what if I'm in line waiting to buy almonds?
Stick to the self-checkout and remember to breathe.
California almonds. Own your everyday. Every day.
Time for an oil change? Head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. We've also got you covered when it comes to oil changes, thanks to Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube. Leave worry behind.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Sr., Mike Golic Jr., I'm Jason Fitz. Sitting in for Trey.
Do you mind if I start with a tweet?
Oh, no, please go on.
So talking obviously a lot about Khalil Mack after he was traded to the Bears and then made the highest defensive player in honor that Aaron Donald. Congratulations, Aaron, on your deal. You were the highest paid defensive player for all of 30 hours, give or take, until Khalil Mack took act. We talked about how we all feel that was a great move by Chicago. Oakland should have paid Khalil Mack. Not everybody agrees. Big Benjamin.
Yeah.
Big Benjamin has a favorite word that I have to clean up here. This is Big Benjamin's tweet. They offered to make him the highest paid player. He wouldn't sign. F him. And F your hot take. This is directed at me. Go eat a sandwich, you skeleton-looking MFer. So I appreciate the fact that you notice I lost weight.
Yes,
so thank you very much, Big Benjamin, for that.
Big boy talk.
They offered him to be the highest paid. No, they didn't. If you read John Gruden's quote, I don't believe we were anywhere close to where the Bears were. They weren't. So they weren't even offering him more than Aaron Donald was going to make. So they weren't offering him to be the highest paid player. So, and Big Ben, you're allowed to have your opinion. We disagree. I think this is a great move for Chicago. And I don't believe Oakland should have gone down the road. I think they should have signed him. But again, I appreciate you noticing that I've lost some weight.
I am stunned, and I will say this. I've seen a lot. I think Raiders fans are some of the most resilient fans there are. It has not been easy to be a Raiders fan for a very long time. I speak from experience on that. Saturday was one of the few times I've actually seen cracks in the armor. I mean, I saw more reaction of, I've given up. I can't handle this anymore on Twitter on Saturday than I did when the move was announced.
Gruden,
to put it in perspective.
Mike Gruden has taken some heat, been out of the game for 10 years, comes in, starts talking about doing stuff from 1997. For the first comments about Khalil Mack was, well, the defense wasn't very good last year and he was part of it. Not saying Khalil was a bad player, but how much did he help that defense? To basically everybody believing it was his decision to not pay Khalil Mack. And they haven't even played a real game yet since he's been back.
Yeah, it's been a definite PR nightmare for a guy that when he was signed on, they thought was going to be a surefire win for them. This is a guy who is revered and loved. The Chucky doll is still pretty prevalent in the black hole. And now throughout this offseason, it's been a really bad marriage so far of trying to take a feel-good as you worry about that move to Las Vegas. That's the kind of overlying cloud through all of this, is trying to work yourself through the transition. And you thought John Gruden was going to be an asset, and so far it's only been a liability.
Yeah, that move to Vegas is an interesting cloud hanging over the franchise decisions. We'll keep breaking it down, but I can't talk about it anymore. I'm too sad. So we'll get caught up on some of what's trending. Serena Williams reached the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open for a 10th consecutive appearance. She wasn't there last year because she gave birth to her daughter during the tournament, but for the 10th consecutive time, she's headed to the quarterfinals.
And she beat Kia Kanepi, and she beat her 18 minutes in the first set, the fastest on any men's or women's side of this. So she moves on. Sloane Stevenson moves on as well. And I thought, again, interesting that she said she was somewhat happy she didn't move on in the tournament in Cincinnati, got to go to a friend's wedding and got to have a little bit of downtime before this tournament started. And also, I think the last American on the men's side, John Isner, wins a 5-setter. So we still have a few Americans left in this. And Serena, is this the tournament where she starts her walk back to the top of the heap of going down as the greatest female tennis player, maybe the greatest tennis player of all time? Will she get back to the height she was at?
Yeah, it's amazing watching, I think, two different all-time greats coming back from two very different, Tiger Woods on one side that we watched in golf coming back from injury, and certainly for him a number of off-the-course things that have been a part of his whole rise and fall. But for Serena, something entirely different. Childbirth for one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen, now trying to work through this process. And so you're right. As you build step by step through this, as she gets back and feels more like herself in a situation where she changed in ways that we can never understand or identify with.
Her strength continues to look like it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's just overwhelming to see how powerful she is right now when she's hitting. Urban Meyer returns to the Ohio State football program today following more than a month away from the team while he was on paid administrative leave and then served a suspension.
Yeah, so he's allowed back now to the team. He couldn't be with the team for the game. Now he's allowed back to be with the team. He just can't be at the next two games. So, all right, he won't be there on game day, but he's involved in basically everything else as they put it on Oregon State 77-31. They play Rutgers. And then the last game he will miss will be against TCU, which would be that's a heck of a quality opponent right there. But he can be part of everything else. So, I mean, is it really a suspension where you can do everything, but you just can't show up on game day? I get it. You're not there on game day. The biggest part of the whole week is to try and cap it off with a win. But, at least for the sake of the players, and if you start to want to think about the players and all this way this whole situation has come out, it stopped being the Ohio State University and the Ohio Statement University for all the statements that were coming out from everybody. But let's look to the players, and the people we're supposed to care about the most is the part, like or dislike the suspension and how it was, their head coach gets to work with the players now. So from the players' standpoint, that's a positive for them.
Yeah, it seems like it really affected the players week one.
Well, we didn't think it was going too much here. Huh?
Yeah, not much there. It is nice, though, that they've at least gotten Urban Meyer away from the microphone and just said, hey, you know what, pen some of these thoughts before. Even though every statement that comes out, I'm like, why are you guys still talking? Yeah. Why are we doing this? But at least they smartened up and stopped putting him in live situations where he usually has responded poorly in real time.
Speaking only to the action on the football field and nothing outside of it, to give Ohio State a little bit of credit. This for the Big Ten East this weekend. Michigan State did not look imposing. Obviously, it's week one. We know there's a lot of pieces there, but Michigan State didn't look great. Penn State survived a scare. Michigan, obviously, we talked about earlier. Ohio State was the one of those big four that came out and did exactly what we expected them
Ohio
to do.
State plays Penn State at the end of this month, September 29th.
That's going to be big.
Biggest thing for them, I know everyone was worried about Haskins at quarterback. Everyone was talking about J.K. Dobbins at running back. Mike Weber, 186 rushing yards in that game. Nice two-headed monster in that big backfield. Good
that
Lord.
offense looked spectacular. And quickly, Tiger Woods enters the final round of the Dell Technology Championship, 6 strokes off the lead of Abraham Answer. So Woods is still in this thing.
Yeah, and again, Woods brings the fans in and brings the ratings up. Certainly understand that, but he's, trying to play for the next tournament. Obviously, the Ryder Cup, that's where he wants to be. Bryson DeChambeau is the one who had the low round yesterday, 8 under 63. He's one behind Answer, who I call AA now. And once he becomes a big name, he's going to get himself a battery deal.
You're really, I'm pushing
I
feel like you should get a percentage of that because you're doing the work his agent should be doing.
Abe Answer, AA.
That is, well, that gets you caught up on what's trending. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, hanging out with Mike Golic Sr., Mike Golic Jr.
Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. The one-man celebration. The Marty Party continues. Marty Smith.
Well, good morning, boys. That's right. The party's in town.
Marty Smith's America. The podcast, downloaded and subscribe on the ESPN app.
Yeah, man. Rocco's Tacos. Palm Beach, Florida.
Rocco's
Taco
Tacos.
Tuesday.
All in on it.
Marty is a Marty Party.
He is. Good work right there, brother.
That's right, the amazing, incredible Marty Smith. You can check out Marty Smith's America podcast. We've got him hanging out with us.
We hung with him this weekend.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, Marty came by and did a little Trick Shot Monday with us at Notre Dame, a proud tradition that Marty is now a part of.
Well, Marty,
I had like a big Golic weekend up there in South Bend, Indiana. Let me tell you guys, I run into Junior on Friday, and then on Saturday morning after I was done with Sports Center and game day, I'm standing on the corner adjacent to the Notre Dame stadium waiting on an Uber, and who rolls up in like the most amazing golf cart I've ever seen in my life, but Golic Sr. And, he's just rolling around campus in this Rolls Royce of golf cart. I about asked him to Uber me back to the hotel.
Well, Marty, you're leaving out the coolest part of your weekend, was obviously the video you did for the College Football Show on Twitter.
Oh, my God.
Hey, you know what?
It's always about you.
There you go. That's
right. Marty Smith was on with us. But, Marty, I got to ask, the Marty Party, this really created a conversation for us after the show. We were sitting there thinking about, we all see the Marty Party, but what's it take to get invited to the Marty After Party? Because I think that's like the next level of turn. I want to be there.
Not much, like a free 6-pack. It's a BYOB Marty Party, and if you just go up with like some, Busch Light, we're welcome anytime.
Talking to Marty Smith of Marty Smith's America podcast on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And Marty, we certainly had a lot of good times with you this weekend, and you're no stranger to good times around college football. And I want to turn it to what has been a big subject in the last couple of days because it involves one of our own and Maria Taylor. But you've seen Nick Saban in the best possible circumstances. I saw you and Tebow with him on the pontoon boat. You've seen him at his best in this situation after the postgame. What did you make of his comments in that interaction?
I think he just lost his cool. It was unnecessary, and I saw last night that he called Maria and apologized, and he should have. And she didn't do anything wrong. Her question was just fine, and so that's that. It's really that simple. I think he's just so. I do understand his message. I do understand the message that I'm not going to disparage anybody. I'm not going to, choose, for lack of a better term, to laud one guy over another. And so the narrative has frustrated him. But when you have two very dynamic, very successful football players who both really want to be on the field and whatnot, and the fans want to know. When you think about Alabama football right now in the context, what they want to know is quarterback. And, Tua looked like he was unbeatable the other night. And so the question was undoubtedly, unequivocally warranted, and Coach just lost it. I mean, it's really that simple. And look, if he called Maria and did apologize, which is what I've learned, then he realizes that too.
Talking to Marty Smith America, the podcast, available on ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. We're going to get to in a moment where you're doing the game from Florida State, Virginia Tech. What a great way to end week one, and where you're going to be for that game, which is just amazing. We'll get to that in a minute. But we always do on Monday here, who won the weekend, and let's make it a college football version of that. In your mind, which team had the best weekend?
LSU. And they are the freshest in our minds, as it were. So, but look, man, I knew they were going to be pretty good. And I knew that Joe Burrow was a really good football player. I've been around Ohio State a lot, too. And I know they really liked him up there. But how good is Dwayne Haskins that a guy like Joe Burrow gets beat out in Columbus? I'm going to go down to LSU, win the starting job, and play really well against an 8th-ranked Miami team that a lot of people have a lot of expectations for. So if I'm Ed Orgeron this morning, I bet he didn't sleep. He probably just went home and slammed 8 more Red Bulls and, put his fist through the wall or something. Because he's got a guy now that can get the ball to all of these amazing playmakers, and his defense is ridiculous. Devin White might be the best defensive player in college football. So, in my estimation, LSU won the weekend. A lot of teams, look, I was impressed with Ohio State, the way that the young men played the game, given all the controversy surrounding them over the last month. I couldn't possibly be more impressed with Notre Dame and Brandon Wimbush. That young man played. He took an obvious step, but when it comes to a team doing better than expected, LSU wins it.
So, Marty, let's take a quick look at the other side of the spectrum then, from the great to maybe the head-scratching. Penn State and Michigan State particularly both struggled to get wins against lesser opponents. Do you see any reason for concern for either of those teams, or was it just week one glitch?
Well, as it pertains to Penn State specifically, wow. A lot of people feel like they're going to win the Big Ten. A lot of people have picked them to win the Big Ten and be very special. In fact, I hope I'm not speaking out of school, but I think Herb Street has them in his playoff choices. So there's a lot of expectation in Happy Valley, and I love Trace McSorley, and I think James Franklin has done a great job. That was shocking, but should it be? I mean, App State is a giant killer. Fortunately, they escaped, both groups. Certainly there's cause for concern. They can't play that way and make their way through the Big Ten. But as it pertains to the other side of the coin, Notre Dame won that game. Okay, Notre Dame played very well, but Michigan had so many undisciplined, boneheaded plays and penalties at inopportune times that, and they still only lost by 7. They lost one of their best defensive backs on the 4th or 5th play of the game, whatever that was. There was a lot going on there for Michigan that I would be frustrated by if I was Jim Harbaugh, because the penalties were, there was some unfortunate plays made there. So they got to clean that up. I still think they're going to have a really good season, though.
Talking to Marty Smith, Marty Smith's America podcast. Also can check Marty and McGee out on the SEC Network, 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays this football season. And Marty, you mentioned the Michigan team there. I thought the quarterback position was interesting. What did you make of Shea Patterson's performance and what we saw of Dylan McCaffrey in that game? Because I thought it was interesting the way the offense responded during some of the snaps he had when Shea left with what appeared to be an ankle injury or a foot injury at the time.
I think Shea played pretty well. He's going to play better. This is a different type of offense for him. And, look, man, there was so much hype around him entering the season, as there should be. I mean, he's probably Harbaugh's best quarterback since Andrew Luck, at least at the collegiate level. So I think he's going to have a very good season. I think if they want to play to his strengths, I think, okay, I don't mean to bounce around so much, forgive me. One thing that Saban did that was very smart many years ago with Lane Kiffin was he started to tailor the offense to the talent he had rather than trying to make the talent run the offense he wanted, right? I think I saw that out of Brian Kelly on Saturday night. I think he said, I see Brandon Wimbush's very special talent and very special ability. Let's try to tailor plays to that strength. I think that's something that Michigan might want to do because I think Shea's a really dynamic football player. He's very mobile. He has a rocket. And when he got out of the pocket, if you go back and look, a lot of the great plays made were when he was on the run. And so that I think is important. But if they open that offense up a little better, I think they'll do well. I think he played well. Yes, the offense did well when Dylan McCaffrey was in. He managed the game well. I found it interesting that was the word Coach used after the game when he was asked about it. I was sitting in the press conference after the game. Coach, that question was posed to Coach, and he used the word managed. So that is what was asked of Dylan McCaffrey. It's obvious. Hey, man, go in there and manage this for a minute, and we'll see. They got work to do, period. Their offensive line has to protect better. Absolutely. By the way, man, what about Khalid Kareem? Fellas.
Yeah.
I mean, remember that name, America. If you don't know it, you will.
Marty Smith joining us, Marty Smith's America's podcast. Now, tonight, the first ever Labor Day megacast. Marty's involved. It's Virginia Tech taking on Florida State. Because you're the most interesting man in the world, you'll be in a blimp with Ryan McGee for the entire game, right? So what are y'all doing up there, and how can everybody tune in?
How am I going to answer that? We're going to be in the Goodyear blimp for 5 hours, I guess. We're going to have to go up. I mean, look, they got to get that pregame aerial shot, right? So have to be up there for that. And basically, this is actually a year in the making. A year ago, Ed Placey, who is the gentleman who oversees all of the game programming for ESPN, inquired with me about the prospect of going up in the Goodyear blimp for Ohio State, Indiana, to open last season, the 2017 season. And I kind of like, you know how when a dog's confused, it kind of looks at you and cocks its head sideways? That was my response. But I was into it, and it ultimately didn't materialize. And then this year, I got another call from Ed. Ryan and I both did, and we were all in. We're like, sure. So we're not going to be doing play-by-play. We're going to be up there. Certainly we'll be talking about both teams. We'll be talking about the weekend. It's going to kind of be Marty and McGee in the blimp, I guess. But, 5 hours of Marty and McGee, that's a commitment. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I have no expectations at all. But we're going to be in the blimp, and thank goodness there's a bathroom in that thing.
So if you said 5 hours of Marty and McGee, does that mean Cooter the Rooster is going to make an appearance?
Well, we're trying to see if we can smuggle him on. They don't. I'm not too sure how fond the folks at Goodyear are of foul, but we're going to give it our best. Yeah, Cooter.
I mean, Marty,
people got mad at me. We got this new show, on SEC Network as Golic a second ago there, and it's every Thursday night at 7. And we're going to talk ball and cut up and be Southern boys. But we have Cooter on the set, and then we have Cletus and Uncle Jesse and Roscoe. There's like 4 or 5 roosters on the set, and I was on the tweeter machine, and I said, we have Cooter and his cousins. And people lit me up because they're like, you obviously don't know the Dukes of Hazzard if you don't know the family tree and whose cousins with who. I was like, man, what's wrong with you people?
Marty, how can we watch this? This is a real question because I want to see both of you, and I want to see if Cooter actually makes it on the blimp. How do we watch it?
ESPN3.com. We're going to be on ESPN3 the whole time. And from what I understand, we're going to be on the pregame show. And from what I understand, they're actually going to come to us during the game broadcast at some point. Did you guys happen to see? I don't know if you guys saw the press release, but the press release was a little bit perplexing. I had no legs in the picture, and McGee, his head was oblong like a football. It was as if my 6-year-old daughter Vivian had a clip art deal in kindergarten, and she created it, that photograph. I'm not sure what happened there, but I felt like I could pick up McGee's head and, spin it down the field or something.
Marty, all I can say is Junior and I were on the Goodyear blimp earlier this year at the national championship game. Scared the snot out of me. So hopefully you guys handle it better than I do. I'm not good with heights, man. I'm not good with heights. And it's really
you don't want to go up in the scoreboard at Bristol Motor Speedway then. I don't like heights either. And I got to the Battle at Bristol, whenever that was, that last August, whenever Virginia Tech and Tennessee played. And the folks at game day said, "Hey, man, can you do me a favor? Can you go up in the scoreboard and do a live shot?" And I was like, "What? I don't like heights." Well, I got in this little cart. I mean, it was a little tiny basket. And they sort of pulleyed me up 115 feet above the playing surface. And that scoreboard at Bristol, they call it Colossus, is 4 stories tall. I was on the 3rd story looking down at my cameraman all the way across the way on the 1st story with the field playing surface beneath us. And I almost lost my breakfast, lunch, dinner. Spatial awareness was a problem. It was big.
Well, Marty, you'll do better tonight, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Marty
Marty.
Smith, Marty Smith's America podcast. Check it out tonight, ESPN 3 out on the blimp. I better man than I am, more courageous too. Coming up, how much of the expectations changed for the Bears now that they've added Khalil Mack? We'll ask touchdown Tom Waddle next.
It's been a long offseason without football, but FanDuel has spent it getting into the best shape of their lives. That means this: FanDuel is ready for more. More ways to play, more ways to challenge your friends, and most importantly, more ways to win. FanDuel also has new options for playing daily fantasy with your friends, because the only thing better than winning cash is winning your friends' cash. Right now, you can get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Will Kane. Age and state restrictions apply.
It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit Zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing. Technology powers your business, and technology changes. But chances are you're still using video conferencing that was wow 10 years ago, but feels more like whoa today. Ditch the choppy video and crappy audio and get back to wow with Zoom. It's the easiest, most reliable video collaboration suite, and it costs about 1/3 of what you're probably paying now. Wow, not whoa. Visit Zoom.us to set up a free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm Jason Fitz, sitting in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Jr. Khalil Mack goes from the Raiders to the Bears, and that gives us our salty coach of the week, John Gruden. He's our salty coach of the week, brought to you by California Almonds. Own your everyday. This was Gruden talking about sort of the division that is perceived to be happening in the front office.
Do you feel Reggie was truly on board with trading him, or do you feel maybe you had...
No, they're trying to divide us. People are trying to divide us, and I wanted him gone. He wanted him here. And we made a decision as an organization. Mark Davis, Tom Delaney, we all got the information, and we made a decision together. And I'll just say what he said. I read what he said yesterday. It's a decision that we all came to.
Mm-hmm. Salty coach.
And he also said that they didn't come anywhere near the money that the Bears paid for Khalil Mack. Obviously, the draft picks as well. If you don't know, it was 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick that went to the Raiders, and going to Chicago is Khalil Mack and a 2nd-round pick, which I do think was a good get to get a 2nd-rounder as well, and the fact that they now have guaranteed Khalil Mack $90 million.
Well, we will now go to Chicago, where we're joined by Tom Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. We've been saying all day, Tom, much to the chagrin of me, the lifelong Raiders fan, that the Bears hit a home run in this thing. From your side of it, when you saw this trade go down, what was your initial reaction?
Well, first of all, someone inside the Raiders building doesn't know what Spider 2Y Banana is, because obviously guys are on different pages. I thought it was unbelievable. I thought it was improbable, because I couldn't understand the scenario where the Oakland Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, whoever they are, I couldn't fathom a scenario where they would be willing to not re-sign their best player. I'm not talking about their best defensive player. I'm talking about their best overall player. So Initially we talked about the possibility of this last week on our show, and 2 first-round picks is a pretty high price to pay because of the slotted, the nature of the slotted salaries in the first round. But, those are just prospects. This is a proven commodity. When you're talking about pass rushers, you're talking, Von Miller, Aaron Donald on the inside, J.J. Watt when he's held, and Khalil Mack's in that conversation, guy.
So, listen, you draft a first-rounder, you pray he turns into Khalil Mack. And he did turn into Khalil Mack, and they chose not to pay him. So before we get into how this was going to work for the Bears, from a former player standpoint, in the locker room in Oakland right now, what are the other players thinking of the best player on their team it was traded away?
2 things, Mike, and you guys know this as well as I do. The first thing is we're obviously not interested in winning now. And second of all, if I ever reach my potential and go beyond it, I'm not going to get paid. I mean, there's your example. That's Exhibit A right here. Here's a guy that's your best football player, and you're going to let him go, which means we're not going to win as easily now as we were going to with him. And if I ever reach my potential or exceed all of the expectations for me, I'm not going to get paid. So, look, John Gruden has forgotten more football than I'll ever know, but this one is puzzling from every aspect of it. And as you said, Mike, on the inside of that locker room, there have got to be some, and you saw the tweets. I mean, there are some guys there that are not just puzzled. I think they're very upset.
Talking to Tom Waddle, co-host of Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000 in Chicago on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Did think it was funny how quickly Reggie McKenzie came out and tried to combat that idea. Said, oh no, we're still willing to spend money around here, just not on this particular guy in this particular situation. But for the Chicago Bears situation, Tom, how much does this change expectation going into this season right now? We know it's a long-term move, but what does it do this season?
Well, obviously it gives everyone in this town a sense of excitement and what could be. And I would say, guys, the devastating feeling that reverberates in the Raiders locker room is one of ecstasy in the Bears locker room. I think you can go 180 degrees and say, ask the question, what does this say about the Bears? What do the Bears players and people involved in that organization, how do they feel? Well, they feel that we're going to win sooner rather than later. And if, in fact, I reach or exceed my expectation levels as a player, I'm going to get paid the way Khalil Mack did. Maybe not the same number, but you know what I'm saying. Look, this team has some really nice pieces. They don't have a ton of depth, but if you look at the defense last year that statistically was top 10 in a number of categories, if you've got a healthy Leonard Floyd who'll be playing with a club on his hand in the initial weeks of this season, if you've got Akeem Hicks who's been bothered a little bit by a knee but should be able to play, and you've got Khalil Mack coming off, you tell me, if you're an offensive coordinator, who are you choosing to double? Well, you double Mack, that frees up Hicks, and it's going to free up Leonard Floyd. So I think defensively, a top 10 team gets even better. Maybe you get up closer to 5 and you start rolling. Offensively, I still believe this team, and big picture, this team's going to go as far as Mitchell Trubisky ultimately takes them, because he's still the most important commodity on this franchise or in this locker room. So I think it accelerates expectations. I think we're in win now mode here in Chicago, as opposed to let's just bring this young quarterback along, and they'll do that. I don't think that they'll expect him to throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns Sunday night against Green Bay, but yeah, I think the expectation is now that we're going to win a little sooner in this town than we thought.
Talking to Tom Waddle from Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Tom, with that being said, what is a realistic expectation? The NFC's stacked at this point. So are the Bears a playoff team right now?
I don't think so. Look, I want to participate in the enthusiasm as well. The Raiders and the Bears are not an apples-to-apples comparison, maybe, but the Raiders were 6-10 last year with arguably the best defensive player in the league. So, I still think this Bears team has a little bit ways to go, not just in the NFC, Jason, but directly in the NFC North. You got the Packers with Aaron Rodgers back. I think the Vikings are the best overall team in the division, and it's a Lions team that won 9 games last year. So I think first things first, they take a step closer to the other teams in their division. I had them pegged at 7-9 or 8-8. I feel, pretty confident that this team can be an 8-8 team and maybe surprise a little bit to the upside. But I would still say, whoa, that thing a little bit until we see who Mitchell Trubisky is. And quite frankly, I have a lot of, positive thoughts about him. but I just don't know. He played 12 games in college and 12 games last year in an offense that had very little around him. So he's a big question mark right now, but I know everyone up at Hallis Hall feels very, very strongly about the young man.
You guys can follow him on Twitter at TWaddle87. Check out Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Tom, as always, man, we appreciate you. Thanks for the time, my friend.
Thanks, Tom.
You got it. And Golic brothers, congrats on Saturday night's win.
Thanks, man.
We appreciate it.
It's a big one.
Well, not brothers, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we know what you meant.
It's early.
We know what you meant.
You guys look like brothers. Yeah. That's what he was saying. That's what he's saying.
Thanks,
no, that's just because he looks really old.
Well, the messed up part is I look like the older
That's
brother.
exactly right. Well, a couple of things he said that I agree with. It's a team that I think is better, but doesn't have a lot of depth, so they can't afford a lot of injuries, and we know it's an attrition league. And also, I get it. In this day and age, you go as far as a quarterback can take you. But, man, I tell you, a defense that can create turnovers, that can change field position, they can really help your quarterback. They can really aid an offense that brought in receivers. Maybe that offensive line can stay healthy because it hasn't been for a while. And we'll see what this new offense under Matt Nagy is going to bring as far as helping Trubisky with his maturation process.
We talk about these defenses in the NFL and say the best ones stars at every level, and you look at the potential for stars at every level on this Chicago defense. We know that he gets coupled in with the linebackers, but Khalil Mack is essentially a pass rusher. He's a rush defensive end. You couple that, maybe this takes some pressure off and helps the development of Leonard Floyd on the other side. We know Roquan Smith is certainly going to get talked about in this, but there are tons of ancillary effects. Akeem Hicks on that defensive line, who is an absolute bear of a man. Eddie Jackson on the back end that they're looking to develop. So there's a lot of potential for this group to really shine. And when you add a star, this, it makes, having a Reggie White on the field, having someone like that draws so much attention makes life easy for everyone else.
The only difficulty I see for them is the fact that the NFC is stacked. And I don't just mean their division. I mean the conference as a whole. 8-8, 9-7. I don't think gets you a wild card this year.
No,
in the
I
NFC.
agree with that.
So they can be much better, but still on the outside looking in. Coming up, who won the weekend? Khalil Mack, Serena Williams, the SEC. We'll tell you next on Golic and Wingo.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030. You up?
You up.
You mean like a booty call text?
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about here? Is that where you're going?
I mean, I'm just...
You up?
Yes.
Wow.
That's
I'm going to try that right now to my wife. Okay. I just sent it. We'll see what I get back. I may have to leave the show. You know what I'm saying? I got a response.
What'd she say?
She just text back, idiot. That mean I'm staying here?
Okay, that means she's not here for it. That's the next vernacular.
Not here for it.
Yeah, she's not here for it.
So if you weren't here for it, would you want to make it a point of texting back to say, yeah, I'm up, but you ain't getting this booty, you know what I'm talking about?
Who won the weekend?
You know what I'm talking about? Ain't getting this booty. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're not. You didn't win the weekend. Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing makes up for your football obsession or those guys continuing to play that rejoin when I'm around, like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
Every now and then I got to tell the wife, you can look, but you can't touch. You know what I'm talking about?
Did you just go vase?
Yeah, I'm a vase guy.
I say vase as well.
Classy as hell.
You guys are bougie.
Yeah.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Sr., Mike Golic Jr. Look, I'm not even really part of this next conversation because I know I didn't win the weekend.
No, you did not.
As a Raiders fan, none of my peeps won the weekend. Raiders fans all over spent the weekend. crying. A lot of crying. Got a good cry. Who needs to go see like beaches when I can just watch the Raiders and get my good cry in? But it does raise the question of who you guys thought won the weekend.
Well, again, on our poll at Golic and Wingo, we had 4 choices up there, and obviously you can go wherever you want. We had the SEC, we had pass rushers, we had Matt Kemp of the Dodgers and Serena Williams. The SEC is leading in that poll, which will be up just a little while longer, but there's so many other choices out there. Certainly our alma mater, Notre Dame, could be Auburn with their win over Washington.
The SEC 13-1 opening weekend.
I think I would probably maybe it's the defensive player in me, maybe the bias to the pass rusher, seeing the defensive players getting paid, seeing them getting paid, and how it's raising the bar for all the other defensive players out there before. I know we've had other $100 million defensive players, but these guys are setting a new bar, and we're going to see $20 million quarterback cap hits and $20 million non-quarterback cap hits on the same team. It's going to happen. It's going to start happening next year, and the cap's just going to keep going up. We're going to see it more and more. So I like the directions that going. So congrats to Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack, 2 guys we thought maybe wouldn't even start the season on the field. Both end up getting paid and going to play.
Yeah, big one. A lot of on-the-field ones you could pick. Obviously, for us, Notre Dame, it felt like a good weekend for that. You get back, you answer a lot of questions early on. Still more to work out, but a great marquee win over a program. But shout out to Maria Taylor, man. You learned very quickly. You got a lot of friends. You got a coalition of the willing ready to ride for you when stuff goes south. We all want to think our friends are going to have our back. Maria found that out in a heartbeat in a situation where we know Nick Saban admittedly overstepped a little bit, called and apologized, so all is well now. But Maria got a lot of help from the cavalry on that one. Not like she needed it. Maria can handle business on her own. So,
she can.
But good to find out your friends are willing to ride with you.
I know you guys both mentioned it, but I will go with the weekend winners, the SEC. 13-1 over the course of the weekend. The only team that looked pitiful was Tennessee. Frankly, they were overmatched against West Virginia. But when you looked across the landscape again, I think most of us believe going into the season that the Big Ten East is the best division in college football. They struggled in games that we didn't expect them to struggle in. The SEC did the opposite. The SEC came out and reminded us they're still bigger, faster, stronger in many ways.
Spin zone for that one, too. Will Grier started at Florida, so technically SEC quarterback gets the win.
Look at
there
that.
You go. How about that? All right,
You're welcome, Peter Burns.
A couple of quick things if we can get them both in. First, and this is just being rolled out in China. It's not in the U.S. A couple of new Oreo flavors.
Oh.
No, thank you.
Oh.
Wasabi and hot chicken wing.
I don't want my I don't want my alcohol or my dessert to be spicy.
Nope.
I don't need either of those things to be spicy.
No go on that. Mike, you give it a shot? No.
Audi 5000.
No shot. Leave them out of this country. Don't want to even look at them. And then how about this? Out of Texas, cans of Axe body spray explode across a Texas interstate after a semi-truck catches fire. Truck driver looked in the back, saw a fire going on, pulled over. The bed was on fire, and all of a sudden these cans of Axe were getting shot all over the place and on fire and blowing up everywhere. Cans of Axe spray, body spray.
I feel like an entire city smelled like a 7th grade locker room at that point. I mean,
I was going to say, if you lit a match in my 7th grade hallway, this would have been the exact same outcome right now.
It says nobody was injured and the driver was able to make it out safely, but I-35 was shut down for hours as crews cleaned up hundreds of exploded Axe cans and tons of people making out because Axe was working. You know what I'm talking about? All of a sudden that Axe spray is around, people start making out.
I don't think anyone is still getting any sort of make-out session off a can of Axe body spray. That's the smell of an 18 and up nightclub.
I really have the image now of Mike Golic Sr. just going.
Mike, I hate to tell you, I use Axe.
Yeah, exactly. That explains a lot.
You know how things are working at home? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Mom's out of town right now for a reason.
Oh, okay.
Double spritz of the Axe and then a you up text, and that's how romance.
Come get some.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get